Today I will be showing you how to create this DIY wall decor piece, but I am bringing you on a journey with me because it is my first time using this scroll saw, and it's all thanks to my family over at Ryobi. Let's start where I am comfortable, and that is just creating the base of the DIY before the scroll saw. And I actually had these pieces of plywood cut down for a project I ended up never doing. So I'm gonna use some of those pieces of wood and then kind of dabble in my scrap wood pile, pull out pieces and put them together until I get the diameter of the circle that I would like to create. For me, my diameter will be about 22 inches. You can go smaller or larger though. Don't go just according to my measurements. Do what works for you. After I had enough wood stacked next to one another, I went ahead and sanded down every single piece using my Ryobi orbital sander, starting with an 80 grit and making my way to a 120. Once you sand each piece, you want to make sure that you wipe the debris off completely before you go ahead and stain or paint whatever color your heart desires. I personally decided to do 4 different types of stain just to have like a more, rustic random look versus just one color on the whole thing. I don't know. I just was feeling frisky, guys. While these pieces were finishing up drying, I went ahead and cut out a big R that I printed out from my computer just using the font that I had available. It's this calligraphy R. It stands for Rachel. It also stands for Rodriguez, so bada bing, bada boom, it works both ways. You can freehand a design directly onto the wood once you put it together, but I just know myself, I am not going to like what I create, so I just went ahead, played the safe route, and cut this R out to trace it. As I have said previously, it is not my way or the highway, so go ahead and put that wood together however you'd like. You can glue it, you can screw it, you can do whatever you feel comfortable with. I am gonna go ahead and make some marks because I will be using my Ryobi biscuit joiner. I went ahead and used the biscuit joiner on every single mark that I made on my wood because that is how I am going to be holding it all together. I flipped my wood stain side up and then literally just lined the edges that were meeting with glue, popped a biscuit in there, and just put the 2 pieces of wood together, moved on to the next, and clamped them all as I went along. I let that dry overnight, and then I actually am not fancy at all. I went ahead and just tied a piece of string together that I had on hand, put a nail in the center of that piece of wood, put a pencil on one end, and just literally drew a circle that way. You can freehand it, you can get crazy and do any other tips and tricks that you know about, but this works the easiest for me. I clamped my wood down nice and tight, put my safety glasses on, and then went in with my jigsaw to cut out my round. I sanded down the edges of my round to ensure it was totally smooth. You can do this by hand or you can use a bench sander. It's totally up to you. I did it by hand and for some reason didn't show you guys. Next step is to trace or freehand your design directly onto that piece of wood. Now all we have to do is cut this guy out, but we are going to use the scroll saw. Well, I am using the scroll saw and it is my first time, so I'm going to walk you through this guy as I learned to use it. On the front, you will see that you have your switch and switch key, your variable speed knob, which you can adjust the speed of the saw, like how quick or slow you want it to go. Then you have an area for sawdust exhaust. You can connect your wet or dry vac. You also have your bevel lock knob, which you can adjust if you need to cut at an angle. And on the top, you'll see you have your blade tensioning knob, which we'll get into. You see that little pipe hanging off of the side? Well, do not worry. You want to connect it to the top. That is going to be the sawdust blower. It is going to keep your space clear where the saw is cutting, so you can see where you are guiding it. I don't have a permanent home for the scroll saw since I have a lot of tools that I need to swap in and out. I placed this guy on top of some wood, screwed it into it to ensure that it would not move, but I also clamped the piece of wood to my workshop table to once again ensure that this thing does not move. Before we jump into cutting this, I am doing the R. I am not cutting into the piece of wood, so I need to create some starting points, which I'm just using my Ryobi drill and a drill bit that is bigger than the saw itself. I wanted to feel everything turned on, so I went ahead and I didn't put any wood up. I just flipped the switch and messed with the knob to see the speed of the saw and like how quickly or how slow you can make it go. Just kind of getting like the lay of the land before I actually dive in. Once I got a general feel, I unplugged my scroll saw and then I loosened up the blade tensioning knob and also the two knobs that hold the blade in place, then slid the blade into one of the starter holes that we made with our Ryobi drill and just hooked everything back into place and made sure everything was secure by tightening up every single knob. But you don't want to go too tight on the tension knob because that can cause your blade to break. When everything was good to go, I plugged the machine back in, grabbed my glasses, flipped on that on switch, and then just gently guided my wood through along my pencil markings for the R. And I really thought that this was gonna be harder, and it ended up just being really fun and therapeutic. You want to ensure that you're working with the wood. If the wood starts to kick back or the saw is like jumping around for whatever reason, turn it off and let the blade come to a complete stop, and then kind of recenter, refocus, and just go nice and easy. As I mentioned before, this was legitimately my first time using this thing, and if I felt like I was going off of the path that I already marked out for myself, I just turned the blade off, shimmied it back into place, and just recentered because you can't add more wood on once you cut it off. I rather cut off too little and then like go back in and work my way up to the line that I want to cut off, versus like going in heavy and then just messing up the entire design, because something like this actually is pretty detailed and intricate, so just be patient. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably like, how in the world are you going to attach that middle chunk of R? Well, I am hoping to come up with a solution as I work my way through, but I do know one thing. I need to go in and touch up all of the raw wood that you can see. I even touched up like the cut part of that wood to match the color of the piece. I feel like I'm explaining this way too aggressively. You get what I'm saying. When that stain was finished drying, I went in with a rag and just wiped off any debris or dust that may have collected on it while I was waiting. And then I used my little painter cones to prop this guy up and add my outdoor finish, which was just like a clear coat. But you can finish it whatever way works for your space. Again, not my way or the highway people. For that middle portion of the R, I went ahead and cut down some skinny pieces of scrap wood and decided to use that to attach it along the back side to create a little floating situation. I glued and screwed the wood into place on both the back of this guy and the actual round itself to complete the R. When this guy is hung up, yes, you can see those two pieces of wood, but if I was sticking to it being in this room, I would have painted those white. However, I had a last minute change of heart and decided that this would be the perfect fall front door inspiration. So I took Mr. Skeleton off and placed this guy right there and decided to stain those two pieces of wood the color of my door to make it blend in more. Now, I'm not going to give away how this guy is actually going to look once it is all decorated because duh, that's for another video. But all in all, I love that I am not just using this as a typical wall decor piece. I'm using it as a wreath, and then I'll transition it back into our home once all said and done and we're moving on to December. Don't leave. If you're interested in making this DIY, Ryobi and I have partnered up again for a second giveaway to give away the scroll saw, their orbit sander, and their battery starter kit. Head over to my Instagram to see all of the details. Thank you so much, Ryobi. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will catch you on the next one for another DIY.